Good morning, afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, What's Next for Kenzium's Point of Sale System. Today's session is all about looking ahead and understanding how Kenzium is evolving to meet the demands of tomorrow. We'll dive into the strategies and innovations shaping the platform to ensure long-term stability, effortless scalability, and the kind of growth that empowers your business to thrive in a rapidly changing retail landscape. Whether you're focused on operational resilience, expanding your footprint, or future-proofing your technology, this discussion will give you a clear view of where we are headed and how it benefits you. But before we dive into the exciting updates about Kenzium's point of sale system, I wanted to share a quick personal story. I worked in retail a lot from the time I was 12, off and on, all the way through college. I worked at gas stations, grocery stores, delicatessens, department stores. Back then, the point of sale systems were simple, often clunky, and sometimes a real challenge to keep running. I remember how much effort went into just making sure transactions happened smoothly. Fast forward to today, and the transformation is incredible. Retail technology has evolved from basic cash registers to sophisticated cloud-based platforms that do so much more than just process payments. These systems now drive efficiency, scalability, and growth, helping businesses adapt to changing customer expectations and market demands. That's exactly what we're here to talk about today. How Kenzium is being shaped for long-term stability, scalability, and sustainable growth. We'll explore the innovations behind the platform, the strategies that make it future ready, and what this means for your business. Here's what you can expect in today's session. A look at the vision and roadmap for Kenzium's point of sale, key features and enhancements designed for scalability and resilience, how these changes position your business for growth in a dynamic retail landscape. Let's dive in, but I do want to pass on a couple of housekeeping notes. First, all participants are on mute to ensure a smooth experience. If you encounter any issues, please use the chat feature and our team will assist you. Second, we'll make the recording available after the session so you can revisit any part of today's discussion. And finally, we'll have a dedicated Q&A at the end. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Raul Gedapudi, co-founder of Kenzium and a longtime leader in digital transformation. Raul brings decades of experience helping brands streamline operations, elevate customer experiences, and unlock growth through smart technology, making him the perfect guide for today's look into the future of Kenzium's point of sale and everything it has to offer in 2026. Raul, over to you.
Today, we'll talk through how Kenzium's point of sale is evolving for long-term stability, scalability, and growth. I'll show you concrete, the architectural changes that we're doing, the user interface updates, and a roadmap that positions Kenzium point of sale for true ERP-centric omnichannel retail. Right? And what I mean by that is obviously focusing on improved offline operations, centralized administration, and future-ready deployment models. Right? And we'll tie this to what's happening across the point of sale industry. Where offline resilience, ERP integration, and unified commerce or omnichannel commerce are becoming non-negotiable for mid-market retailers and distributors. Right? As I mentioned earlier, I lead the product strategy and our digital transformation initiatives across ERP commerce orchestration, ERP e-commerce orchestration. Over the last 2 decades, my focus has been around solutions that connect ERP and commerce into one reliable backbone. Right? And that's the lens I'll use today, which is pragmatic changes that reduce friction, stabilize operations at scale, and accelerate growth. Right? And the goal at the end of this session is to focus on 3 things. Right? So the first thing is, as it pertains to Kenzium point of sale, centralized administration, why we are simplifying the configuration and security at the corporate layer. The second element is focusing on the architecture and UI changes, right? How a unified .NET based code base and a Blazor hybrid based user interface improves performance and maintainability. And we'll also talk about the roadmap beyond 2026, right? How Kensium point of sale will expand ERP support, move towards thin client and PWA options, and adopt open telemetry. I think something that is very important, so you can actually have consistent observability across the environment. So you should be able to see exactly what's happening in the register, what's happening at the server level, and so on. So it should improve. So it can improve how you manage your point of sale systems. So with that, let's focus on why we are talking about point of sale today, right? So while point of sale remains the operational core for retail and distribution, and point of sale systems existed forever, but the requirements have changed over years, right? So not when I say the requirements, these are not about your actual point of sale device and so on. Of course, that has changed, but not drastically over the years. It's been a few years since touchscreen things and modern browser-based point of sale devices have come out already, right? And market leaders like Shopify point of sale, Square, Lightspeed, they set the bar for ease of use and omnichannel basics for sure, right? However, mid-market businesses with ERP workflows need deeper integration, high volume reliability, and robust offline capabilities, right? Yes, Shopify point of sale does have offline mode, but with meaningful limitations, right? I mean, constrained card handling and delayed inventory syncs and so on. Square also now offers a much more wider offline coverage across its hardware with like 24 to 72 hour reconciliation windows, which means that you can operate in an offline mode for up to 72 hours, and then it comes when the system comes online, it'll reconcile. These are useful but not tailored to ERP first solutions, right? So what's the key takeaway here, right? I mean, as businesses scale, integrations, speed, and resilience across channels becomes critical, right? And that's exactly where ERP integrated POS differentiates, right? So the focus is, how are we different, and why is there a need for us to have a separate point of sale, especially considering that Kensium also is a Shopify partner. We implement Shopify point of sale as well. Why do we still have a Kensium point of sale? Primarily, the reason is making sure that the point of sale that we focus on is the ERP integrated POS, where the system of truth is the ERP for us, right? So I've talked about some of the three popular point of sale systems. So what are they? I mean, one is obviously Shopify. Everybody hears about Shopify, right? So Shopify POS is excellent for Shopify native merchants, right? If you're already running your e-commerce site on Shopify, then it makes sense to run your point of sale on Shopify as well, because it simplifies a lot of the omni-channel capabilities, right? But offline card payment is limited. Inventory updates lag until reconnection, right? And it's good for SMBs. It's still not there in terms of scale, in terms of volume, and so on. And also note that with Shopify, most integrations are geared for e-commerce, right? So they're not built for point of sale. So point of sale does have a different requirement, including simple things like consolidation, where you do not want to bring every point of sale order into your ERP as a separate order and eat up ERP transactions, right? So these are all challenges that you'll see. Square, on the other hand, provides broad offline payments and support across like various types of hardware, very popular, and sellers can accept dip, tap, swipe, with funds processed when connectivity returns and so on. But of course, the risk is assumed by the merchant, and the ERP integrations are not standard, right? So there's ERP integrations are fairly limited with what it does. And Lightspeed is obviously very popular in the retail and the hospitality analytics and so on. And it has many integration partners, yet ERP grade orchestration often requires third-party connectors, which adds complexity and costs as volumes grow, right? So the bottom line here is that the SMB-oriented point of sale systems, which are the three I've mentioned above, they excel at speed and user experience. But when you talk about ERP-centric operations, where ERP becomes a source of truth and not these systems and their databases, multi-store, high-volume SKU counts, complex tax requirements, or consolidated transactions, they need a different architecture. And that is the reason why we've been focusing on continuing to maintain and now enhance the Kensium point of sale. Right? So what's Kensium point of sale, right? I mean, obviously it's as I've been talking about it, it's a purpose-built solution for mid-market manufacturers, distributors, and hybrid B2B, B2C brands, right? So we have existing ERP integration. This has been there for quite some time. We connect natively with Acumatica, Sage 100, and Sage 500. And then we'll also talk about how, in our roadmap, we will support all the other ERPs, the mid-market ERPs as well, which is like NetSuite, Infor, Epicor, Business Central, and so on, keeping one source of truth for pricing, inventory, and customers. And one of the things that we'll also talk about in the roadmap is why this approach that we are taking to connecting with all these ERPs will make it easy for you even if you are switching ERPs, right? So let's say if you're on a really old legacy platform, if you're trying to modernize and move to let's say an Acumatica or a NetSuite or a Sage XC or something like that, you can simply change your ERP without truly impacting your point of sale. You can stay on the same point of sale system because of how the integration is going to happen with the ERPs, right? And obviously high volume transactions across multiple locations with offline resilience, right, to continue selling during internet outages or any other challenges, right? And unified admin and data, right? So we want to make sure that there's centralized control that minimizes fragmentation and speeds up the provisioning of the systems. If you want to add a new register, if you want to add a new store, we want to make sure that it is as simple as possible. And the idea is that these capabilities that I'm talking about here mirror best practices, which you are already seeing across some of the solutions that I mentioned earlier. And these were some of the challenges that we had with our current version of POS. And this is what we are trying to improve. So we can focus on improving, accuracy, auditability, and real-time visibility end-to-end between ERP and your point of sale. And of course, supports e-commerce as well, right? So what's the current architecture like? Bear with me. It may seem a little complex because the current architecture is fairly complex, and you'll also see why we are trying to simplify it and so on. So the current architecture, it's a lot of boxes, right? As you may be aware, Kensium point of sale used to be Fusion RMS, right? Which we acquired around 2 years ago. And Fusion RMS was fairly formidable in terms of its capabilities. And why was it able to do that? I mean, obviously you see that it's a two-tier architecture with multiple networks. There is a corporate server. You can have, if you have multiple stores, you'll have a store server, and then all of your cash registers will connect to the store servers. There's comms and server client for data syncs, local SQL databases, which obviously supports the offline mode, and obviously a very complex and a mixed technical stack, right? We were using C++, .NET Framework, ASP.NET Core, proprietary bridges, local gRPC. You name it, we had it, right? Every single technology that was there, that came out over the last 20 years was part of the system. Now, this architecture delivers a lot of capabilities, right? And one can even say that Fusion RMS was actually ahead of its time, right? But it also leads to deployment complexity and maintenance friction typical of legacy stacks, right? So as I mentioned, the tech stack had a lot of different things, right? So basically, the two-tiered network was that the corporate LAN had the ERP, your Fusion corporate server, the COM server, and the SQL database. And every store also had its own store server, communications client, SQL database, and the registers and so on. And you had to manage each of them independently, right? So what were some of the challenges with this, right? Complex deployments, multiple installers, and Microsoft IaaS at store level increases the cost and risk. The legacy stack mix limits modernization speed. The communication sync latency, right? Sometimes tens of minutes, and on large data sets, it may even take hours when you're trying to sync large, do a large volume sync. Offline, it worked well, but also there were limitations with gifts, taxes, and so on, right? And these pain points echo industry best practices, right? A modern point of sale should provide secure card handling, both online and offline, local caching, robust reconnection, and sync strategies, while giving staff visibility into all the transaction histories and risks, right? So what are we doing? We're taking all those boxes and we're simplifying it. And this, we still have a lot of boxes, but simplified. And the next iteration will have even lesser number of boxes. The reason why we're doing it this way is to make sure that we are minimizing the disruption for existing customers, right? While we are simplifying aggressively, right, the focus is to make sure that we still keep the backward compatibility, so we are not changing anything, right? So obviously the RMS store and point of sale admin are removed from the store level. So you no longer have to maintain everything and manage everything at the store. You manage everything at your corporate level only, right? We sync the data to the stores and we maintain the stores, but we moved all the administration to a central system. And we have a unified code base, everything built on C# and .NET 8 with Blazor Hybrid for the register, for the cash register, which means that the register becomes a fat client with integrated provisioning and local payments and tax integration. You see that in the previous slide, the tax and payments are actually connected to the, at the corporate server. So which means that even though we support offline mode, if the communication breakdown occurred between your store and your corporate server, the only payments that you could accept would be cash. So we moved that to the store, which means that even if you lose the connection to the corporate server, which could be located in a different city somewhere else, you can still accept tax and payments as long as the store has some sort of a network. And if the store does not have a network at all, then we do a store and sync later kind of a option as well, right? So the idea is that you support all these, the true offline capabilities and simplified deployment, right? So I keep, what's the register, right? So the main register application itself will be a fat client application, as I mentioned, and that will continue to implement the daily point of sale operations, right? So I'll also talk about like what improvements we're making on the register itself. It's not all the technical changes in the back end. The front end is also being improved, right? And the register will have, it'll detect. So the idea is that when you start the register, it'll detect if the configuration has been changed at the server, and then it'll download all the configurations. So you don't have to maintain everything at the register again and again, right? So again, fairly simplified. And in the future, we will not even have this this COM client and the integration with the ERP. We will move the ERP outside, so it can be on the cloud somewhere, and all we use is a centralized pipe to talk to any ERP. So that simplifies all of these connections in the future as well, right? And the benefits that we will see because of this, first thing is the deployment simplification and fewer moving parts at the store. So fewer moving parts means lesser elements that can fail and less number of things that you should be chasing if something does go wrong, right? And maintainability with a single solution and EF core-based data access. A cleaner path to something I'm going to introduce, a new brand name or a new product name that I'm going to introduce called Omnify CX, which I'll explain later what it is, and third-party integrations via RMS APIs, right? So which means that we are also going to provide and open up APIs that will allow you to connect any other systems to point of sale that we are not natively supporting already. Okay. So what does that mean? What are the key features, right? The Kenzium point of sale obviously supports high volume. We'll continue to support high volume ERP integrated operations with gift and loyalty, offline support, and multiple fulfillment options like BOPIS, like buy online, pick up in store, Boris, and which basically increases the flexibility and driving the store traffic, right? And of course, industry data actually shows that BOPIS is scaling rapidly in the US with long-term growth projections driven by convenience and real-time inventory visibility, and our transaction consolidation and ERP sync are tuned for mid-market needs, right? Reducing the ERP posting load while keeping the detailed sales data in the POS. So what that means is that, this is something that we do today, and we are continuing to maintain this, which means that if you're doing hundreds of transactions in a day, you don't need to bring in every transaction into the ERP every single time. You can consolidate that at specific intervals. And let's say you can take 10 or 20 sales orders or more and convert that into one invoice into the ERP. So reduce the number of transactions and so on. Right? So what are the key elements of the modernization? Right? If you're talking about the modern stack, the modern UI, we talked about it. We are using a technology called Blazor Hybrid at the register, right? Basically having unified runtime and consistent data access, centralized administration for provisioning and security at the corporate, right? And a true offline mode, which I mentioned earlier, including credit cards and taxes via local integration patterns, right? These are aligned with industry best practices like store and forward, local tax caching, and so on. And future-ready operations, right? So thin client and PWA exploration for SaaS models and open telemetry for unified observability, right? And these choices match broader point of sale trends, right? So it's a mobile contactless, cloud-ready, and headless, and thin client architecture to speed updates and reduce the total cost of ownership. So let's talk about what it does to your existing setup. Does it mean that we are, are we changing everything? No, we are trying to maintain and run these things on the same hardware. So one of the things that we are focusing on, which I'll also show in the quick demonstration, is that we do support, all the legacy hardware and also the modern devices. Like let's see if you want to run a modern Android device or a iPad and so on, we do support that. Now, obviously, we need to make sure that the hardware that is connected to those devices are compatible, right? So the point of sale and the register itself will run on any device, but we need to make sure that the integrated hardware, whether it's a barcode scanner, whether it is the printer, device and things like those are compatible with the new devices that you're bringing. And we are continuing to expand support. Our team is actually talking to a few different hardware providers to see if we can expand additional support and additional hardware and so on. But your existing Windows clients that you're using with the point of sale today, with the Kensium point of sale today, will continue to work, and we will maintain compatibility with all the existing hardware and implementations. Right. So the admin, right? So we talked about the admin. In the admin, the experience is the goal is a single control plane. Your users, your roles, your store and register provisioning, payments and tax configurations, and communication policies, all of them are centrally managed, right? This reduces the time to deploy and enforces consistent security, right? And as I mentioned, industry best practices emphasize centralized configuration and audit trails. So as to, you can see, what configurations has been changed, where it has been changed, and so on. So if there are issues, we should be able to track it. Right? And the cash register itself is also modified. It's more modern, right? With the new interface, we have a fast, intuitive user interface with local processing for the things that I mentioned. And again, the secure tokenization and encryption, visible offline transaction status, auto recovery when connectivity returns, and things like those, right? And for teams, it means fewer interruptions, less manual reconciliations, and smoother customer experience, similar to what some of the leading providers promise in the industry. But the key difference being that all this is integrated with the ERP data and the rules, right? So once again, the idea here is to make sure that we are keeping, there's a transition period that you will see at this point. This release one is an interim release. We'll probably, the idea is that once we have this release, we can have more frequent releases where we'll slowly introduce new features and so on, rather than trying to change everything in one shot, right? The idea is while we are modernizing it, we are focusing on evolution and not revolution, right? So we want to make sure that keep things that are familiar, keep them intact, and introduce the new modern elements, and then of course take it forward. So with that, let me start with a quick quick demo. In fact, actually, let me do this. I'll talk about a future roadmap for a little bit, and then I'll initiate the demo, so that way I don't have to come back to the slides and so on. But let's talk about what's coming in the future, right? And after what, everything that I've talked about is what's going to be released in version 1, which is expected at the in this quarter. And as I was talking about that, we will introduce new features. What does the future roadmap look like? The first thing definitely is Omnify CX integration, right? The idea is that what we currently call as ASI, if you're working with us, you may have raised tickets with us with integrations, and our team would talk about comms, ASI, and so on. The application system interface, which is a webhook-based integration, will be replaced with our new product that we're launching. For those of you attending the Acumatica Summit, you'll be able to see a demo of it at our booth. So we will be launching this new integration platform. It replaces all of our Kensium legacy connectors, the e-commerce connectors, channel connectors, and so on, with a simplified modern interface, and that will provide support for all the additional ERPs as well. Right, so the ERP support will be expanded very quickly, and we are actually not. One of the nice things is that it's not a lot of lift on the point of sale side, because Omnify CX will handle all of those. All we will do is to talk to Omnify CX from Kensium point of sale, and this product, which is built for omnichannel customer experience, will then orchestrate all the data across all the systems. The second thing that's important for us is the database options. We will also start providing support for PostgreSQL and MariaDB, which means that today the databases, which in today's world, if you remember the diagram that I showed earlier, you have these databases sitting at the store server, at the register, at the corporate server, and so on, which we are replacing it with still one at the corporate server, but we are still maintaining local databases. By moving to these open source databases, it reduces costs and provides SaaS flexibility, so we can actually move this to in a SaaS world in the future, and provides better control as well. And then we want to do a communications overhaul, right? So which means right now we'll still keep the communications between the register and application as is. That's something that we'll be changing as well. So that will reduce and the sync windows and reduce the failure modes. It will have even more tighter integration with the ERPs, right? And obviously, then we'll take up the feature cleanup. So this is where we will be seeking feedback from all of you to figure out, which features are critical, what would you like to see, what would you like to change, and so on. And we want to remove some of the obsolete features and improve the maintainability and add additional functionality and so on. So one of the things that we will do is to open up the feedback loop, so we can actually listen to what you're looking for and then continue to drive our product development roadmap based on the features that you're looking for. Right? And definitely, the observability, which is adding open telemetry for standardized metrics, logs, traces. No longer will we do all this tracking ourselves. There are modern tools available that gives us all the insights that we need, and that way you'll be able to see what's happening, whether is the service being denied, degraded, are there intermittent issues or latent environments. You should be able to see all of those. Right. So with that, let me switch to a quick demo, and then I'll do a quick recap, and we can move to the Q&A session. And if you have any questions, please do type that in the chat window. We'll take that up at the end of the session. So what does the point of sale look like? I think I mentioned this. There were screenshots already there, but the point of sale will be focusing on these elements here, which is the most important thing that you'll see is the diagnostics check. So when you log in, you will see if there are any configuration errors or warnings that are coming up and so on. So you can actually, there is a self-diagnostic that keeps running regularly to keep showing what's happening, and allows for better maintenance. And there's a centralized administration here, and we will also be incorporating. I mean, most of you are aware that we also have a gift card and loyalty application. That's a separate application, and we will also be bringing that into the same interface, so you don't have to log into two places to maintain that. That is not right now, but it's going to come in the next release. And you will see that we can actually manage all of our stores. The registers, everything can be managed straight out of the system here. And you can also see the there's the configuration here that you can manage, and within the and the security and user roles and other things can be managed here. You can connect that and sync with the systems that you have with the ERP and so on. You can define your design and themes. You can obviously change the theme and the look and feel to match your corporate colors and so on. You can update your content. Again, because this is using more modern framework and so on, you should be able to control a lot of these things. And of course, you can manage your traditional point of sale. This is what you would manage on the store servers and so on, which is your tax configurations, your currency configurations, your typical inventory, pricing information, store information. Everything is set here. And we are also giving the ability to register extensions, which means that you can actually integrate third-party extensions into the system to enhance the platform in the future, right? So allows for some customization, some additional capabilities in the future, and so on. So the idea here is to make sure that this is the only place you will manage your entire point of sale configuration, and you don't have to basically go outside of this system, and you don't have to look at the store configuration, register configuration, the corporate configuration, and so on. Right. So let's look at the point of sale, the register itself, because obviously that's where the team will spend most of the time. So these logos and everything obviously will be mapped to your logos. You can configure. So once you change your logos and settings here in the designs, this screen will change. And the idea is that you can. So let's talk about I mentioned that you can actually this system can run in multiple modes and multiple devices. Let me simulate that on my browser quickly. So if I go into this mode, so you can see that let's flip to this is an iPad mini, right? The system will change now. So you can technically run it on a phone as well, but not something that I would recommend. It would be painful. But if you are using a iPhone Max, it does support that. But again, you'll have to do a lot of scrolling up and down. But yes, we are supporting it fully responsive, and if you want to run it on an iPad mini or something like that, you should be able to take care of it and run through that, right? So let me close this and come back here. So once you're here, it's fairly simple. You can just click, you can select customer, enter, and fairly responsive interface from that perspective. You can just select items here, right? And you can enter the item and it comes in, and you can basically go through the tender sale and check out and so on, right? So again, we're maintaining all the elements. We are trying to make sure that the keyboard elements that are liked by the customer base today, which is having the function keys to quickly access things and so on. You don't have to use a mouse or and things like those, or you can do your scannings and so on. So all those things are being maintained, right? You have the ability to add a customer, edit customer, look at the customer history. You can actually fulfill an item that's actually purchased somewhere else. So basically, you can do a lookup, you can do a price checks, all those things that you're able to do in the old platform. We are able to do the same things here again, and except that it's a little bit more modern and more a newer interface that works differently, right? So this is what is coming in the future. You obviously can change the salesperson, add comments, which obviously can get synced to the ERP. You can change the price and things like those. Obviously, whatever price you enter here is what goes into the ERP as a sale price. It'll automatically apply the the discount values and things like those. I think that's at a very high level what a sneak preview of what we are planning on launching very soon. are we will be announcing the launch date. I think we are trying to coincide that with one of the events that are coming up. I think we have an Acumatica event coming up, a Sage event coming up, and so on. so we will go through that. So coming back to the presentation, we talked about the future roadmap. I just want to give a quick recap, and then we'll jump to Q&A. Right. So this is obviously just to recap. Kenzium Point of Sale is an ERP integrated system with current support for Acumatica, Sage 100, Sage 500, and so on, with a modernized code base, with true offline capabilities, omnichannel fulfillment, and scalability across stores and registers. And it integrates with the traditional cash drawers, the EMV terminals, scanners, and printers. These are same as the existing system. We will support multiple payment gateways like we're doing today, with the native authorized.net, which nobody's using anymore. For Acumatica users, we do support Fortis, e-discharge, things like those. Obviously it's fully linked with the ERP, which improves efficiency, reduces manual work, and treats your ERP as a single source of truth as volumes and complexity grows. Right. So with that, I will open up the questions.
Thanks, Rahul. So we'll move into the Q&A right now, and we have some questions coming in. Now you can continue submitting questions, and we'll get to as many as time allows. So let's see. The first question is, how does Kenzium POS handle offline credit card transactions, and what risks should we be aware of?
We're doing that. So actually, that's a good question. The risks are important to be looked at, especially with offline transactions, with PCI compliance and so on. Right. So the first thing is that we are doing it in two phases. If you remember the architecture that I was talking about, we are moving the credit card integration. Today, the credit card integration is connected to, and even the tax integration is connected to the corporate server. So by moving the credit card processing from the corporate server to the register, we are already reducing the dependency of having an active connection to the corporate server. Right. That is phase one. The second element that we are doing is to include a store and forward approach, right, for offline card payments. So the transactions are encrypted and cached locally and are automatically submitted when connectivity is restored, right? And we obviously expose clear status indicators, configurable limits, and aging rules. So, the store managers can control the risks, right? So if you're in offline mode, you can define, what's the maximum limit of the transaction that you can accept and so on. And these mirror the best practices seen across the industry. And the other thing is that we are also looking at integrating more modern terminals. A lot of these terminals nowadays, if you look at a Square Point of Sale and so on, they're running off of your phone and your SIM cards and so on. So you really do not need a physical infrastructure for running your card payments. So we will support those as well. So there are three different areas where we're providing this additional support. One is moving the processing to the register. The second thing is wireless device support, and the third one is a store and forward approach.
Okay, all right. And next question is, what's the biggest reason why we should pitch Kenzium POS versus a standard or mainstream POS like Shopify or Square?
This must be coming from one of the wars. The ERP integrated POS focuses on a single source of truth across, pricing, inventory, customers, and accounting, right? So minimizing manual reconciliation and errors as volumes grow. I would say, a standard or mainstream POS, this is what we do. When do we recommend Shopify Point of Sale versus our Point of Sale? Because we do support both, right? And SMB-oriented Point of Sale excels at ease of use, but typically has limited capabilities with respect to ERP integrations, credit handling, a lot of the cases where you have to have tight integration with the warehouse and so on, right? And the idea is that when you are okay with, let's say if you're using a Shopify as your e-commerce system, then we strongly recommend using Shopify Point of Sale. Why? Because that gives you the best omni-channel capabilities. You can basically use Shopify gift cards, Shopify, discounts are defined in one place and can be used in both the systems and so on. But if you're not using something like that, and if you're using a different e-commerce system, or you're not really offering gift cards and loyalty programs and things like those, in those cases, and you want a tight integration with ERP, that's when you would say, you should look at something like a Kinsim POS, right? Effectively, a point of sale that's fully integrated with the ERP rather than on the e-commerce side. So I would say if you're looking for large SKU counts, which have to stay in sync with the ERP, multi-locations, BOPIS and BORIS, consolidated posting, auditability, which aligns with manufacturing and distribution best practices, that's when you want to look at something like a Kinsim POS.
Okay, and let's see, which ERPs do you support today, and how will you expand?
Yeah, I should have spent a little more time on that earlier. Yeah, today we support 3 ERPs primarily, right? And we've been even during the fusion days, these 3 ERPs were supported: Acumatica, Sage 100, and Sage 500. And that is something that we'll continue to support at launch with the new platform, with deep integration and one source of truth workflows. And the moment we connect this to Omnify CX, which is expected to be launched, actually Shopify already launched it, Acumatica will launch it at the summit, Sage is also coming up very soon. We already have started work on integrating Omnify CX with Sage X3, Infor, and Epicor. So the moment we connect the point of sale to these, we'll expand to these additional ERPs as well, right? And so the idea is that we just have to connect the POS to this platform, which then enables seamless integration to all the other systems. So the simple answer is that second quarter is when we are planning on having additional ERP support beyond the 3 that we currently support.
Okay, we have a few more. What is the launch date for this new version?
I think if my dev team that's here is not going to like my answer, but we're definitely, at least we're targeting, pushing to target a GA release in the first quarter, as we mentioned, and that's the reason why we've started these sessions to explain to the world what we're doing and what's coming. If we, obviously the goal is in March, but then the big splash is something that we want to do at the Sage Futures coming up in, I believe it's April.
And how will it be rolled out to existing customers?
That's a good question. I think we have a migration plan that we are actually talking about. One of the important things, as we mentioned, is as we are moving this, doing this migration, the easiest thing would have been to rip out everything and just start from scratch, because that would have been the easiest thing to do, and we didn't have to support things. But that would also mean that it would make it very, very difficult for our existing customers to migrate. So what we are doing is to, the first phase, as I was mentioning, is to make sure that we are keeping the database structure the same and just eliminating all the other elements. So we'll have a phased migration plan, and because we are keeping the data structure exactly the same as what it was before, and only changing all the elements around it, including the front end elements and so on, the migration path should be fairly straightforward and simple. And we'll be reaching out to each customer, setting up a time, releasing them to staging, having them test it out, and then moving to production. So our goal is to ensure that every customer is on the new platform within 1 year of launch of this new platform. Again, from our side, we want to make sure that we migrate everybody to the newer platform, because it is less work maintaining 2 different platforms and so on. So we will have a migration path, which will end probably around April 2027.
Okay, and this is a follow-up. We have time for one more. It says, does this new platform require new hardware?
Only if you want to. If you've been looking for modern looking registers, then you can. But No, I think the idea is that we wanted to again make sure that the backward compatibility is maintained. Current Windows devices, the current systems that are hooked up to the cash registers, to the barcode scanners, to the printers, all those things will still continue to operate. So you do not need to upgrade the hardware to move to this new platform.
Okay, good, good. So great questions, and unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. If you asked a question and we didn't get to it, no worries. We'll have it, and we'll have someone reach out to you and get you an answer. And we'll also send you a recording of today's webinar to all attendees. So thank you very much for taking your time out of your busy day and joining us and learning what's next for Kenzium POS. And the rest of you have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.